welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Valentina Thörner, Executive Advisor, Remote Leadership Expert, and she is the founder of RemoteThatWorks. Welcome to the show, Valentina.
Thank you very much for having me. It's delightful to be here.
It is indeed, and we are also very delighted to have you on the show, Valentina. You are welcome to the show. Welcome to India in this online form, and I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will be benefiting from what we are going to discuss about managing productivity and collaboration. So, my first question to you, Valentina, is to understand from you exactly the trend right now that is going on, what's happening, what's the state of affairs about remote work at the moment?
So we're in a very, very interesting time because it feels like the world is reshuffling to put everything where it should be for where we can work with at the moment. So during the pandemic, of course, everybody went remote, but it wasn't really remote, but it more like shelter at home because the world is ending out there, which I have been working remotely for over 14 years. And the 2 years where the pandemic was at its height were the most stressful years in my entire life, because being shut in at home is not the same as working remotely in a pace and in a place that you choose. So now we are in a place where you technically can optimize remote work for productivity, for collaboration, for social connection. But a lot of companies have optimized for work from home. Do not ever talk to anyone because you might die. So we are now in this process of, okay, we need to do something different because shutting everybody into their homes is not healthy, not for the company, not for the individuals. So how do we do this? So some of the bigger companies, and Zoom, I think, was just in the news for this, they are making people coming back to the office. Now, they always say it's because of collaboration, it's because of innovation, because other people don't talk, but usually they have a very big office building that they kind of need to monetize. So sending everybody home is not really good for their bottom line in terms of investments and for their shareholders. So, and we have to realize that the companies who are making the most noise in the media very often have a high stake in real estate and have a high stake in the media, so they can actually use it, work media in their favor. If we look at small and medium-sized enterprises, remote work is definitely on the rise. It makes it easier to hire highly talented people. It really expands your talent pool. Even if you say, I really like being in the same time zone, or we want to be in the same political system, so I'm only going to hire in India, or I'm only going to hire in Germany, or I'm only going to hire in my country, you still open up the talent pool to a lot more people than just the people who live basically in your city. And it allows for a lot more flexibility for people in different seasons of their life. It's very easy to get a 21-something person to move to somewhere else because the offices are there. It's very difficult to find an experienced person in their, let's say, late 30s, early 40s, when kids are in school, to move to a completely different city, because it's suddenly not the person who would have to relocate, but it's you are taking away an entire social system, which, if you have to go to an office, is actually important, because where do you leave the kids after school? Or so now we are in a place where small and medium-sized are like, okay, we're going to figure this out. Big ones are like, oh my God, we don't want to figure this out because this worked before the pandemic. And there's a lot of movement going on. What I always tell to my clients is, don't listen so much to the noise, because everybody has an opinion, but that does not necessarily mean that this opinion is the best one for you. Figure out what you need, what you are worried about, what you want to achieve for your workforce, and then start from there, instead of looking on LinkedIn and be like, oh my God, Zoom is going back to the office. I guess we have to do that too.
Absolutely. Very good perspective. Very well explained, Valentina. And the thing is that what I can understand is it's a lot of confusion now. People don't know whether it is, how do you put it even, remote work, hybrid work, work from home, and there are layoffs, no work at all. So many terms have come in, and we are trying to come in terms with what has happened in COVID and how we are going to be in our, we employed fully and also
Yeah,
manage work-life balance, because it's all the devil and the
in the
deep sea,
details.
you can say. And so amidst all these things, I'm trying to understand for the audience exactly, how this remote work thing will pan out. At the moment, people who are a lot of leadership was supposed to be very smart, but they thought the world is going to be in their homes for a long, long time, and then all those decisions went haywire. And again, now they send people work from home, work from anywhere, and they have been forcing employees to come back. People who
Yeah.
have sold their apartments, left their rented houses, shifted their kids to different places, and now
Uh-huh.
they are having to come back to the offices. In this state of affairs, how is it that one can bring back the confidence of employees in a system where they are operating and where they may not be fully confident about
Hmm.
how things will next be? So how do we bring that confidence for the leadership, for the company, at the same time you are working, as well as
Hmm.
how do you make do with the amount of different people who are in different time zones, or maybe the same
Hmm.
time zone but in different offices, where you have no personal contact with them.
Hmm.
What do you advise to people? What do you advise to companies? How can, let's look, help us understand both from the point of leadership, are they that bad that they are forcing people to come back,
Hmm.
and as well as employees, how they can make the best of the present situation, whatever it is, and then wait for it to pan.
Hmm. So, what you just said it, like we need to instill confidence in the people that they can trust their leadership. And one thing that actually made the pandemic so stressful, apart from the health situation, is it was a very unexpected, uncontrollable time where you did not know what was happening yet. And as humans, we actually like to have the illusion that we're kind of certain about the future. So if you as a company can take away the uncertainty, you've already basically won half the battle. So how you do this as a company is make sure you start building this track record of, if I say something, I mean it right now. If you tell people you can work from home, now you have to come back to the office, and now you can work from home again. And okay, we have reconsidered, you come back to the office. Like, you are basically creating a very fertile ground for rumors to spread, for people to feel insecure, and for people to be more worried about, oh my God, is everything going to change again in 6 months, and not focusing on their work. So your goal as a leadership team is to reduce this anxiety as much as possible. And to do this as a company, think about, how do we actually want work to happen? I always like to steer people to think about two dimensions. One is, what is the location where we want work to happen? Like the dimension of location. Do we want to go to an office and really commit to the office with everything that it means in terms of where we hire, how we onboard, how we create community? Or do we want to go maybe to co-working spaces or to distributed hubs, or everybody can work from the same time zone, or everybody from anywhere, but be really intentional about it and not just letting it happen because we were looking the other way and suddenly we have people all over the place, but we never planned for it. So first decide, what is it that you want from a location? And then in terms of the other dimension would be schedule. When do we want people to work? Do they all need to work in the same time frame from 9 to 5 in headquarter time zone, or do we only work with an overlap, let's say between 11 to 3 in the like core working hours in the headquarters time zone, or do we allow complete async work? Once you have decided these two dimensions, everything else kind of falls into place, because now you know how you have to organize your meetings, how you have to organize your get-togethers. And having this certainty as a leadership team means that you now can very confidently say, our way of working is this.
Right.
We know not everybody will love it, and we're going to help the people who don't want to stay here with this type of working, and we are only going to hire people who love working under these circumstances. And you don't need to do work from anywhere if you're not confident that this will work for your company. I know that there's a lot of people out there who actually don't want to travel. They just enjoy working in the village they live in, work in the co-working space they are in. So you don't need to optimize for the extremes that social media loves to share us, like working on the beach with a cocktail. Like, just make it realistic for your company, and then be bold about it. Say, this is the way we work, and we are proud that this is the way we work. And if you fit in with the way we work, you will be super happy here. And if you don't, there's a million other companies out there.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, a quick perspective on the workplace culture in Spain. You know that part of the world is considered in terms of a bit more evolved in terms of workplace policies and being a part of Europe, and much more talking about the work-life balance and everything, rather than some a place like India where we have got many mouths to feed, and there is a lot more competition even in applying for jobs. What
Uh-huh.
is the way people are looking at this remote work or work from home down there in Spain? Maybe that will give, and is it different than other parts of, say, Europe? Maybe in Germany it's different. Is it, how do you must be having a fair idea? So
Mhm.
for people, audience in this part of the world, it will be a nice perspective to understand about the work culture, workplace culture. Though everything looks global, but offices tend to be different when it the work as per the places that they are located in.
So Europe in this regard is very, very diverse. And I think in all of the European countries, you have companies who go like all the way from you have to come to the office. Whether people then actually go is a completely different discussion. To you can work from anywhere in Europe or within the country. What I'm seeing a lot in Europe is that companies say you can work from anywhere within our territory, because social security in Europe is quite diverse depending on the country. Like, one country gives you 3 months maternity leave, the next country gives you 14 months. So it's very
Right.
different. And as a company, of course, you can also offer these kind of, let's say, benefits if the people are actually full-time employed within that country. So what I'm seeing in Spain, also in Germany, also in the Nordic countries, is that people say you can work from anywhere within the country, because we want you to be under the same social security system. And then you can work outside the country for up to 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks a year, so that maybe you don't have to take all of your holidays for summer vacation, but you can kind of combine work and travel. What also, and this is one of the bigger differences within in Europe, is in Spain, it's customary that your child goes to preschool and then to school from 9 to 5 or from 9 to 4:30 from a very early age, like as soon as like 1 year or 2 year old, which also means that it's easier to get back into the workforce kind of full time very early. And it also means that I can work full time from a place very close to where my child goes to childcare, because the 8 hours are almost covered by what childcare offers me, and most of it, like from at least from when they're 3, is state covered if you want to go to a public place. In, for example, in Germany, it's a little bit more complicated, because there it's more customary that kids are actually only in childcare from like 8 to 12 or from 8 to 2. So there, of course, is a lot more push for flexibility from the employee side. What I'm seeing all over Europe is people now have choices, especially if you're a knowledge worker. If you basically just need your computer, then it's easier for you to find something else, because the countries are a little bit more contained. So it's easier to find a job, because you're not, even when you're looking for a job within your own country, you don't have to cover the entire world. You can kind of look within your country, and you can, for example, search for a job in Madrid and then negotiate with them that you're actually going to work from your little village in Cuenca. So I think it's a little bit easier, because the smaller the country, the easier it is actually to hack the system. On the other side, from a company point of view, of course, there's a little bit less choice than if you had the entire continent of India at your disposal, which has a lot more people to choose from.
Right, right. And how is it different than what you see in the US? Is it Is it as competitive, or there is a lot of flexibility being it in Europe?
So
Because US,
the
it seems to be a totally different market
it is
altogether.
completely different, and mostly because of the lack of a social security system. Like a lot of things that in Europe we simply like having 24 days off a year, that's not a perk in German. That's the legal minimum in most countries.
Okay.
So where the US is like, and we're going to allow you 20 days a year to take off, a European will be like, what are you talking about? Like, of course I'm going to take my days off. Like this, why is this a question? Or you have 3 days paid sick leave a year, and a European is like, what? And if I break my leg and I have to go to the hospital for
Right.
7 weeks and you're not, what? Like it's so there is a huge difference in terms of worker rights that are already embedded in the system. A lot of countries in Europe are now making it mandatory that if the person wants to work from home, the company needs to make a case about why they cannot work at home. So for a company, it's often easier to just say, okay, we're going to allow work from home because legally we are kind of in this bind that we need to allow it anyway. So we'll just make a policy out of this. So there, because Europe is more structured in this way and has more kind of labor laws that are usually valid across an entire country and not just across like a smaller state, it's a little bit easier to understand what the state of affairs is. The US is very, very diverse within the same country. Like the rules in Florida are not the same in Texas, are not the same in California, are not the same in Utah. And that makes it also, from a remote work perspective, very complicated for the employer, because even if you want to offer remote work only within the US, you already have to contend with so many different state rules, while in Europe it's a little bit easier. You just have to learn like one rule by country and not run one rule by municipality, basically.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's a great, insight into all those things, especially for a person like me and a lot of people like me who would want to understand. So that was a great perspective. Now, coming back to the remote work part itself, the way the things are developing, and we have already talked about companies, the leadership from the employee point of view. uh, how is it that they can be realistic in their expectations? Sometimes you may think like that you are entitled for all the things that are being talked about, whether it
Hmm.
is remote work, whether you have gone to your village to work, and you feel almost like a victim when you are called back. And this is fair because that's the way it has been communicated.
Yeah.
But to now look at things from a realistic point of view, what would you advise or help understand for the employees how to look at the present situation of remote work, work from home, hybrid work much
Hmm.
more realistically, and keep their expectations attuned with what is happening actually
Yeah.
on the ground? How does it work?
So one thing that you should never ever forget as a remote worker is remote work is still work. If you are being hired to work remotely, the part remote actually only says whether you are going to be in the office, at home, or like it just talks about where and when this work is going to happen, but it has to happen. So just if you are unhappy in your office job, if the only thing that is horrible about your office job is your commute, then okay, remote might improve your at least this part
Okay,
of your
right.
reality. But just because a job is remote, that doesn't make the job fundamentally different. So basically, as you're looking for a role, or as you're interviewing for a role, really look into how does the work look like, and not just can I work remotely or not. I've met a lot of people who are deeply miserable because the company is not set up to actually include their remote people. They feel completely ignored. They have no idea what's going on in headquarters. They see their boss maybe in a one-on-one once every half a year, and they feel completely lost. And even though you may say, oh, that's so cool, they can just do other things, it's as humans, we want to grow, we want to see other people, we want to work on projects together. So it's highly unsatisfying just being forgotten at home. So remember, remote work is work, and you want to be doing work, that you like work, that you're good at work, that you can grow with. So first try to look at what are the expectations that I'm going to live with, what are what is the help that I'm going to get, the support that I'm going to get from the company, and then look at the location. Like, don't make the location your all and everything, because too it's too small of a perspective. It's just like saying I want to have lunch and not defining when you
Absolutely.
want to have lunch, whether you want Japanese or Mexican. Like, you need to be specific in what you want, and then the place will fall into place.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's a nice perspective. The way you talked about this lunch thing. Absolutely, that's the way to look at it. In terms of performance reviews, how should this happen? How should an employee, both from an employee point of view and from the manager point of view, how should
Hmm.
uh, this employee performance review should happen in today's time, especially for remote workers, and so that it brings confidence and trust into both
Hmm.
sides. Because as a remote worker, I will always feel that my performance is not being fully understood, and
Yeah.
especially if the review is not favorable at all.
Yeah. So what I recommend, because in the office, usually traditionally, performance reviews are done once a year, which in a remote setting is completely ridiculous, because after a year, I don't even remember your face. So what I usually recommend companies to do is, fine, if your HR system only wants like something in there once a year, do the official part once a year, but make sure that you break up the year into smaller chunks. So one thing, everybody should have a one-on-one with their boss at least every 2 weeks. I actually recommend once a week. So, and not to talk about work, but also to talk about things in life. How are your kids? I know there was this dance recital. How's your dog? How did the trip to your grandma's go? Like, to a little bit understand the person behind the work facade. Do this every week, every other week, and you are already going to get a feeling for how is this person performing, how are they showing up, are they actually progressing. And then every 4 months, do like a bigger performance review where you really actively go in, okay, what have we accomplished in the past 4 months? What are we going to plan for in the next 4 months? Because the problem with 6 month or 1 year reviews is the world is changing so fast. What do I know what our company priority will be 11 months from now? So there is no way we're going to plan for this today. But what's going to happen within the next 4 months? That's kind of like, you probably already have a roadmap for what's going to happen in that time, and you know what happened in the past 4 months. So make it more frequent, make document everything so that you know what you talked about, and you don't have to hold everything in your brain, because our brains were not made to keep everything about 16 people who are reporting to us in there. So write it down, and then work with the employee so that they understand what your expectations are from them very clearly, and so that you understand where they need to support to actually reach those expectations. And that's one of the hardest parts in remote leadership. As a leader, you need to be absolutely crystal clear about what you want from this person that you just hired, what their role is in the company. And if you look at in-office companies, very often it's not clear at all, because the people just show up and sit on their desk. And I mean, I guess they have something to do there. In a remote world, that doesn't fly. Like, you need to be really, really deliberate about who is responsible for what, and make sure that they know that.
Right, right, Valentina. You have worked remotely for most part of your career. So,
Yeah.
can you, in a nutshell, can you give some very quick tips for people to remember, so that from both sides, so these are the finer points. Just keep this in mind, and also, if even if they have not heard the full video or seen the full video.
Experiment. Like, so work is work. Work needs to get done wherever it is. But how you set up yourself for success will vary from person to person. So in my case, for example, I'm very kind of routine driven. I usually start at the same time, I go for a run at the same time, and I finish at the same time to make sure that I actually finish. I usually recommend to have some kind of routine, some way how you start your day, and some day how you get away from your work mindset. It's very easy if you have a work computer that you can only use for your work. You close it down, shut it down, put it away. If you use your same computer for then having, like, doing World of Warcraft with your friends, maybe change the profile on the computer so that you don't accidentally get information about work while you're not in work time. So making this clear difference between work and non-work, especially if you live alone or only with a partner who also does remote work, is very helpful. In my case, my biggest de-stressor are actually my kids, because once they are at home, I cannot work anymore. And I'm trying to frame this as a as an advantage for myself. And after that, take breaks regularly and see if you can use external cues to get into work mode. For example, is there specific playlists that you can use only while you work? Are there specific maybe scent diffusers that you can use so that a specific scent activates your report writing brain? There's lots of ways how we can trigger little habits that make life easier to get into this whole work mode. And that requires experiments, because some people say you should never work in your pajama. I've worked with developers who were divine in their pajamas and have
Right.
done really good work. So there is no one size fits all. And that's the beauty about remote work. Everybody can figure out which size is for them, but they need to actively figure that out. Just rolling out of bed and opening your laptop will only work for a very small minority of people. So be very active about how you're going to show up in your workday and how you want to make this day work for you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well explained once again, Valentina. So now there is much to know about this thing called remote work, which is again evolving in itself. And so no, we'll come to know about some more terms that will come on in the near future. Already there is this word called asynchronous communication and all that stuff. Where people can record things in there. It has also come into podcasting now, and people are doing a bit of that. People can record their version
Yeah.
at their own time, and then the system will create. Well, how it works, there was an offer for me also to try that out, but I am still very much fine doing this live shows. It has a different liveliness to it, so I will continue. But this is the way the world is changing. Be that as it may, for people who may want to understand more about remote work from you, how can they do that? And what is the best way for them to connect with you if they want to do that professionally?
So I write weekly on Empress of Remote Substack.com. And then find me on LinkedIn. I'm the only one who has this name until my daughter comes of age. So I'm very easy to find. And I write 3 to 4 times a week about things that are in this realm of workplace policies and non-office based work. I have a website, RemoteThatWorks.com, where you can find like different resources and how I work and with whom I work, etc. So feel free to contact me either via the website or simply with a DM on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is my my social media of choice, so I'm on there more often than I should be, to be honest.
Right. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It was really fun.